Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. So, what do kindness, compassion, listening, and respect have to do with litigation? Hang on a minute, and I'll tell you. So, early on in my career, I had the opportunity to work with some really experienced counsel, and I got involved in some really interesting cases. And through those cases, I began to appreciate not only what the elements of cases were and how you handle a medical malpractice or a product liability case. I found out why it is that, for the most part, people come to see a lawyer in the first place. And that is, I think, where people who are interested in risk management, for example, ought to focus their interest in trying to mitigate risk in almost any environment. So let's talk a little bit about that. One of the first cases was a case of a lovely little 2-year-old girl who weighed 25 pounds soaking wet. She was given about a 1,000 cc bolus of salt pore solution. Her brain swelled, and as a result of her swollen brain, it herniated through her brainstem, causing her to die. It was a real tragedy, and Mom actually worked for one of the doctors involved in the case. And she opened up the results of the autopsy and she saw hyponatremia, which is the condition of low blood sodium. So she went to the doctor and she said, "What killed my child?" And the doctor said, "Well, I just don't think we'll ever know. I don't think it's a mystery that can be solved." He knew exactly what had happened at the hospital, but he didn't tell her. And that dishonesty wound up getting him sued. And I think a lot of times when clinicians get sued, it arises out of not being straight with the patient. I think a lot of times patients can understand if you make an error and you own it and you're accountable to it. But when you lie and try to cover up, it really is not the crime, it is the cover up in that situation. There was another individual, a lovely lady who lived in a small town in rural Kansas, who had a doctor's bill that was overdue, not because she hadn't paid it, but because state workers' compensation hadn't paid it. And as a result, her family doctor wouldn't see her when she developed a terrible cough. So she tried to go back to the doctor. The doctor refused to see her because the bill wasn't paid, but said, if you come in and pay the bill and pay an amount in advance to cover the fee for the time that you're coming this time, then I might see you tomorrow. So over the evening hours, she got worse. Her husband took her to the emergency room. As a result, the only doctor on call happened to be that doctor, and he did a very cursory examination, gave her a shot of Rocephin, and sent her home, when in fact what he should have done was admit her to the hospital. Overnight, she passed away, and when in the morning the paramedics came and could not revive her and had to call the coroner was out of town, and the person who was serving in his stead was the family doctor, who immediately walked in the room, took one look at her, and said, "Well, she didn't die from anything I saw her for," which was technically true because he didn't see her when he could have done something about this. But the bottom line was he got sued primarily because of the way he treated the folks and the way that he lied about not having any accountability for what happened to the young lady. I had a case in Columbia, Missouri, involving a now deceased pulmonologist who incredibly failed to do all of the things necessary to ensure that a woman's lungs were up to the task of hernia surgery. And following hernia surgery, she developed adult respiratory distress syndrome and died. And our allegation was in court that he should have done more. And he just came off as flippant and uncaring to the family. And it was one of those situations where, the surgery went fine, but the patient died. And we allege that the patient died because this pulmonologist did not do his job. There was a case that I had in Cape Girardeau where the family kept going to the cardiologist and saying there's something wrong with him. He isn't acting the way he normally acts. He's lethargic. He doesn't have any energy. You know, this guy is a get up and go kind of guy. He's up with the sun every day and he's just not himself. And the cardiologist kind of poo-pooed that and said, it's no big deal, nothing to worry about, everything's fine. I gave him some antibiotics for his cough, except the cough wasn't due to the antibiotics. It was due to congestive heart failure. And as a result of that, the gentleman passed away. And in that situation, what drove the family to see a lawyer was the failure on the part of these individuals, on the part of the doctors and the nurses, to pay attention and understand that when a family says, this is not what my guy normally looks like, that was an important medical warning noise that they should have paid attention to. Now, I want to contrast that for a moment with something that I think is equally important, and that is the relationship that you establish with the patient. In the case in Colombia, one of the things that happened when we deposed the surgeon was he said, well, you know, I love this lady. She was a great person. She was a lot of fun to be around. I enjoyed taking care of her, and I was absolutely devastated by what happened to her. We let him out of the case. And we let him out of the case because we knew that a jury would see him for what he was, and that the jury would also see the pulmonologist for what he was. But the two fundamental things that really sort of nailed it for me, the first was a patient who came in who had had a vascular necrosis happen on her arm. If you tie off blood vessels that feed the bones, a lot of times you develop something called avascular necrosis, meaning you cut off the blood supply and the bone dies. And as a result, she had to have surgery, and a repeat surgery, I should say, and have part of her arm amputated. And that was a really traumatic event for her. Well, she was really, really mad at the hospital because the nurses gave her, quote, the wrong antibiotic. Well, it wasn't the wrong antibiotic. It was just not the right dose of antibiotic for her. She got more than she was supposed to get, and her theory was that that's what caused the infection. And we had to explain to her that, look, it wasn't an infection. The surgeon is the person who did this. It was not the hospital. And she told me, well, my husband plays golf with him, and he's been a friend of the family for a long time. Even if it's his fault, I don't want to sue the doctor. I want to sue the hospital, because in addition to that, they gave me the wrong food tray. Well, the wrong food tray didn't cause her harm, but it made her really irritated at the hospital, because when she pointed it out, the nurse said, just go ahead and eat it. The person that it was ordered for has moved on. They've gone home, so you can eat that tray, and we'll get you another one if you're not full. And that wasn't the issue. The issue was she didn't want what was ordered for somebody else. She wanted the food that she had ordered for herself. The failure to take care of people's wants and needs in a hospital is something that always comes back to hurt the hospital later on. There is this rule of 150. If you have a good episode at any place that provides services, whether it's the Jiffy Lube down the street or the supermarket where you shop, if you have a good experience there, you are likely to tell 150 people during the course of the next year about that good experience. Similarly, if you have a bad experience, you're going to tell people, at least 150 people, about the bad experience that you had. So that is a situation where I think if people realize that, they would perhaps be a little bit more careful about the interpersonal aspects of both patient care in the patient care setting, as well as customer service and customer relations in the commercial setting. People don't get sued as much for the result. In other words, the amputated arm or the partially amputated arm. They get sued for the way they feel about how they were treated. And then the other really important one and was my own experience. When I had cataract surgery, they installed the wrong lens in my left eye, and I couldn't see doodly squat without glasses that were Coke bottle glasses, and I didn't want to run around for the rest of my life with Coke bottle glasses. So I went to a different surgeon and had that error fixed. Now, it was pretty clear, based on the testing that was done at the new doctor's office, that the original testing at the earlier doctor's office had either been done improperly or had reached the wrong result. But when I talked with that doctor prior to going to see the new doctor, he said, look, we did all of the right testing, and I relied on that testing. In fact, when I got results that I didn't think were necessarily correct, I went back and had them recheck it, and I got the same results. So the results were consistent, and that's why I went with the particular lens that he went with. And as a result of that experience, one of the things that it taught me was when I sat down to think about, should I pursue a remedy, I liked the guy. I didn't want to sue him. I thought, yeah, he made a mistake. But, that's the reason they put erasers on pencils. Everybody makes mistakes. His mistake was reasonable. It wasn't done to harm me, and it wasn't based on some need to get more money. I'm certain that he didn't do that so that he could perform another surgery to fix the problem. And the reason that I'm certain about that is because I didn't let him fix the problem. The bottom line is the golden rule also applies in litigation. If you treat people the way you would want to be treated, 9 times out of 10, even if you make an error, you are not going to wind up getting sued because people do not sue people they like. Of course, the corollary to that rule is that people do sue people they do not like. And the reason they sue them is because, again, of the way they feel that they were treated. I had an episode just this past week where I am probably going to initiate litigation against a bank for the way that they handled a particular transaction. And the reason that I'm going to pursue that litigation is because they treated me very badly and very disrespectfully. And they also don't have a single legal leg to stand on. There is a fundamental principle that if you treat people well, generally speaking, even if you have a bad outcome, the outcome for you will be okay. Because people respect people who do the right things. And also, never lie, never try to cover it up thinking that you're smarter than the next person. That never works. I can guarantee that. So, this also tracks very well with one of the things that I say on here all the time. Be kind to people. Be nice. Treat them with respect. The credit that you earn by treating people well up front always comes back to you. When you treat people kindly, it always inures to your benefit. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody about this channel if you want to. If you find the content here is useful, turning people on to it will maybe buy you a friend for life. It will certainly buy you a friend in me. Thanks again for everything that you do for me and for all of the comments. And again, have a wonderful day. Treat people kindly, and I will catch you on here next time. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.